been quite an ordeal in many ways, because the old boys are very critical people, and so they should be. And I'm very proud to say that we've come through that inspection. However, there's still lots of room for improvement, and Falcon will aspire to do just exactly that. The numbers at Falcon have dropped recently. The economic situation, I believe, is part of that reason. In our country, we have economic meltdown, once again, in so many areas. So little is happening in terms of manufacturing, etc., that it is very difficult for people to send their children to the college. I want to just tell you a very quick situation. We've already talked about some of the things that happened. But one of my memories, of course, of the early days at the college was we were having some trouble, and all of you will understand what I mean by this when I say I was having trouble keeping miners out of the quarry that is in essence in front of Chubb. And on one afternoon I went down there and I found that there were 200 people in there, shirts off and digging on our land. It is very difficult, obviously. I called the police. I said, what do we need to do here? And of course the officer in charge said, we'll come back in the morning, sir. Anyway, the following morning, believe it or not, he did come back. And what he didn't understand was that we were playing rugby on the first team field. So in he came with this gang, and of course, in order to get the people out of the mine, he used tear gas. And of course, what happened? The wind was blowing from the creek. I guess you all know the way the wind blows at Falcon. It was blowing from the creek. Okay, and of course, it wafted over the rugby field. Only to find, of course, we had to abandon the game because all the boys couldn't see the ball.
Were you playing Peter House?
We were playing a proper team, I think. I mean, anyway, I can't remember exactly what happened, but we stopped the game for a bit, and I then had to go and see the member in charge and say, I don't think that was terribly wise. Anyway, of course, the college, as I said to you, is alive and well. We have an incredibly good teaching staff currently. There has been a changing of the guard at Falcon in the sense that quite a lot of the old staff have moved on, and we've got new people in. People like Tracy and Patrick Alexander, Ross and Kayla Waghorn. Ross is an old boy, and Rodwell and Sishley Kamala. Some of you will remember Tom Kamala. Now, Rodwell is Tom's son, and he, of course, is the housemaster now of Harvey. So we've got lots of good young people in. We've employed modern teaching methods in the classroom. We have Wi-Fi in classrooms, and we have short throw projectors and white interactive boards. So in terms of the education, Falcon is pretty well off. The house system is as strong as ever, and I've heard many old boy stories about their house and their housemaster and what they can and couldn't do. But what our big drive is currently is to make it a happier place. And not to change anything, but to make sure that Falcon is a happier place. Because the world is moving away from what it was, and we need to attract young people in there. And some of the senseless and mindless punishments we need to get rid of, but we need to maintain what we as Falcon people know is the right thing. Yeah, all of the soft skills, like manners and listening to instructions and being properly dressed and punctual will go on at Falcon, certainly for as long as I'm there. But again, cheerful discipline is what we need to get out and make sure happens. As far as sport is concerned, the sports academy that many people think Falcon is proud and strong. And I'm delighted that people think it's a sports academy, actually. In many ways, we've kind of maintained that sporting tradition, which I think is so important. We've gathered in people like Heath Streak to help with the cricket. Liam Middleton helped with the rugby this season, and Liam is a good solid Zimbabwean who has now been poached by Canada. So I know there's some folk here from Canada, and he's going to coach their sevens team this year. So sadly he'll be leaving us. but we've got in a couple of Peterhouse Old Boys to help us. In the form of Brendan French, who's now the housemaster of Treadgold. So we're turning those Peterhouse boys around. We also have Wayne Black, who's helping in the tennis area. And everyone knows Wayne, and he's doing an outstanding job. Other specialists to teach schoolmasters the modern way of coaching and how things should be. Just want to say to you that golf, we had 2 boys play this year at the World Championship, both of whom are scratch golfers out of Falcon. They're amazing young people, and I'm quite sure that at least one of them will make a name for himself in that particular area. We had mountain bikers at the World Championship in South Africa, and again they did incredibly well. We've had tennis players at the African Championships, and again one of our young men was second. He's ranked 2 in the whole of Africa, and we're delighted with that. We've had several boys at Craven Week, as we always do in South Africa in terms of rugby. So we're very proud of our sporting tradition, and it continues at Falcon, and as long as I'm there, it will carry on. Academics, I want to say that I think things have improved greatly. I do take in Old Boys' sons as a matter of course. It's one of the things that I really am quite sad about, because they're the ones that really battle. They're the ones in the 4th set, by the way. Not being too rude to you all. Academics have proved that improvement a great deal. There are many more boys getting top grades, boys of all ability groups, and they all succeed. We've had a boy recently who was the head boy of the college, Leroy Sabanda, who was fast-tracked to Harvard. We have Paul Trithan, who has won a Rhodes Scholarship to Oxford, both of whom were head boys at the college, and both quite recent ones. So we're delighted with the way that academics is going. We've broadened the curriculum a little bit, and we offer boys more of an opportunity to do other things other than just simply academic subjects. We're working with city and guilds and with HEXCO, the current examining bodies in our part of the world, to make sure that boys get other soft skills that will help them be employable out of school, because that's the trend of the world. In terms of our cultural activities, culture is alive and well. There are over 60 boys playing the guitar at Falcon. There are 4 bands. There are a cappella groups, the septet, and I hope you'll see some of that on the video footage later. It's probably more difficult to get into the septet at Falcon than it is to get into the first 15 these days, so that's quite something. The inter-house singing, for instance, is great entertainment these days. We had nearly 200 parents at the inter-house singing this year, so it really has taken off. Our plays recently have been The Lion King, The Ice Age. We've done Ice Age, Robin Hood, and this year we did We Will Rock You, which is the Queen play, and it went down incredibly well. I wanted to say to you that the band at Falcon played all of those songs live. They played at Speech Day, they did the final countdown at Speech Day, and once again, people like the chairman, who are very critical, said he never heard a band at Falcon perform quite like it. So I take that as high praise. We've also taken on service, and that's taken on as a kind of part of the college. It's really taken on another dimension. All boys do an AstroCard these days. And that AstroCard covers academics, sport, clubs, and of course service. And all boys have to get involved in that. They look after less privileged people, communities. They teach children to swim. They do night school, environmental awareness, and various other bits and pieces. It is part of what the world is requiring of young people. So service has taken on a different dimension at the college of late. Developments, what has happened? Well, the swimming pool now is, of course, a fantastic new facility, and it's lit and has wonderful stands. The gymnasium is a modern building for strength and conditioning. I just want to tell you a little story about an old boy and a board member when we were designing that particular gymnasium. And of course, many of you will know Patrick Mavros. Patrick said when he first saw the drawings of our would-be gymnasium, he said, "I just want to tell you that this is ridiculous. This can't happen." And we said, "Well, why not?" And he said, "Because I'm telling you now, it blocks out the mulangwanis. That's the first thing. You need to understand that nothing at Falcon can block out the Mulengwanis. Okay, Patrick, what then? He said, and I want to tell you, it looks like a motel in Mozambique. And that can't happen. It's got to look like it belongs here. And I'm very grateful to Patrick, actually, for his perseverance, because the new gym is something that looks like it's been at Falcon forever. And it really is an important thing to maintain. We built a computer block behind the library. That was opened by Tim Tanzer, an old boy and chairman of the board previously. We're very proud of that facility. And then, of course, Quest. In order to utilize Quiet Waters, which, of course, is the game park at Falcon, it's 1,000 hectares, which is behind a game fence. And we have all the plains game in there, from giraffe, zebra, wildebeest, and so on. We decided that it was underutilized and that it needed to be developed. We needed to sweat that particular asset. So what we did was we decided to create something which we called Quest Africa, which was a post-A-level course where we take in about 40 boys every year and we teach them, in essence, the ways of life. So what we do is we do business acumen and a myriad of other things, from first aid to welding, you name it, they get to learn it. They rebuild a Land Rover, they do all sorts of things which young people, in our opinion, need to learn. It lasts from January up to September, so if they are to go to university in this part of the world, then it doesn't get in their way. It's proved to be an incredibly successful venture. We have boys coming from all over the world. We've had boys from Canada, from New Zealand, and an awful lot from South Africa, and from the private schools in South Africa. So it is something that's really flourishing, and it's doing really well. We built it as an asset for Falcon, and also so that it would contribute to the funding of our college. And that's what's happened. It's run by Will Randall these days, who's an ex-British Army officer, and his wife Bridget, who've been around for a while. They were the housemaster of Treadgold in the past. So Quiet Waters is being utilized. We've also built various chalets in Quiet Waters, and I understand one of the old boys who's here tonight contributed greatly towards that building. It is important that we utilize the assets that we have. I believe that Falcon is still producing a world-class product. We've had visits this year, in our 60th year, from over 300 old boys on Old Boys Day. And many of whom have come and stayed the night. I was delighted to have David Hunt, of course, who was a teacher at Falcon there. We've had Cliff Morley, we've had David Scales, and Robert Jackson, who's here tonight, I'm very pleased to say, opened the Oasis at Falcon, which was something that we built in memory of the 60th year. As you come into the college on the right-hand side, we've built a water feature there to commemorate our 60th year. And Robert was there to open that for us, and he did the academic assembly on that particular day, which we're very grateful to him for doing. It's been wonderful to have so many old boys around and for them to be part of the school. I just want to mention very quickly the chairman of our board, who's a very special gentleman. Andy Lang, of course, he's an old boy, and he's been around for many years. But he's the most dedicated man and the most amazing man in the same breath. We were locked up together, as been mentioned earlier, and of course that's a very special bonding, as I'm sure you understand. I'd just like to relate that little story to you. I mean, I was newly at the college, obviously, and one morning I woke up and there was a police officer at my front door. And he was armed. And he said, "You need to come with us, sir." And of course at that time I had a reasonable understanding what this was about. And I said to Martha, "You need to phone the chairman because I'm disappearing now. I'm going with the police." It was only at that point that I realized that I couldn't actually go with the police, because the Land Rover that they'd come in was full. And it really was full. It contained 7 other policemen, all of whom were armed, and of course there was no room for me. So I then said, "Well, what do you want me to do?" He said, "Would you follow us down, sir?" And I did, of course. I got in my own car and I drove myself to the police station. After a short time, the chairman arrived, and he said, "Look, this is not the guy that you should be locking up, it's me. I'm the chairman, I'm the man who puts up the fees." And of course the officer in charge said, "Well then both of you better go inside." But I realized then, of course, that what it was to be part of this Falcon family. And I really and truly mean this. By the time we eventually got to Gwanda, which is where we were to be locked up, the lawyer had already got us released. There were several people who I'd never met in my life before who had made dinner for us and was waiting there for us. And I really mean this when I say it was the most amazing situation. Those people were so sincere and so keen that we were looked after in every possible way that it really was quite touching. And I have to say that I've never forgotten those folk, because they were simply part of the Falcon family and they wanted us to be okay on the day. And it really was an amazing occasion. I just want to say something very quickly about the foundation, the Falcon Foundation. I think every school of any importance has a foundation, and we're about to launch ours, and it relies on Old Boys and friends of the college. And that's where you guys come in. You know, we need you to partner, to be our partners, and we need you to be our donors. And the donor that has some voice. We at Falcon understand that each and every one of you was a Falcon and have memories of that particular college, but we also understand how important it is that you as donors have a voice. And of course, you need to know that your money is safe. And of course, that's what we're working on. Because in our country at the present moment, as you can understand, things are not great, and there is no question of that. But we need to make sure that the money of those people who put money into the foundation is safe. It is only, we will not use capital in this particular thing, and it's a very important thing that we will only use any kind of interest that is made from that money. I want to just make very special mention of the retirees. Those folk at Falcon who really and truly have nowhere to go. And many of you know them, and they're amazing people. People like Ted Marais, Gordon and Heather MacDonald, Graham Armstrong, Dave Fleming, and the Bancrofts, Tony and Joan, and of course the Haymanses recently. They are folk who, in our country at that particular time, had, of course, we had a meltdown, and we talk about the many noughts that happened. But of course, what that meant was, of course, they don't have a pension. But we at Falcon have been able to accommodate them and look after them, and we do that to this day. Even people like Jill Turner are helped by the college. So it is important that we set up this kind of funding to help those folk continue to be at Falcon. And I kind of appeal to all of you to think about those old folk and make sure that we can keep them where they need to be for the rest of their time. I often sit with Ted at lunch. Those retirees come to lunch with us every day, and all the staff eat lunch, of course, at the college. And I sit with Ted, and there are many days these days where I get the same story that I had yesterday. I can't remember, but it was that same. But I do want to tell you that after having been at Falcon for about a year, I was a little tired of hearing Ted's stories about rugby. Really? Because he kept telling me about this year and that year and the next year, and eventually I said, Ted, I don't want to be rude to you, but when I was at school at that other place, we did play in rugby, and we played on a Wednesday. Okay, because you guys weren't big enough or good enough to play us on a Saturday. And of course, Ted took great at that. And he said, oh really? And what year was that? So I told him. I can assure you that the following day, he produced the program that was produced when I played a game against Falcon. I want to tell you something, it was a Wednesday, and we did win the game comfortably. Monty Woolley will never forget it. And so Ted and I have been great mates ever since, and we've resolved our issues, as you can imagine. But they are amazing old people, and we need to look after them without a single doubt. Absolutely. So what's left for me to do is just to say to you, join the 100 Club, pay your £5 to Peter Coulson, and make sure that we keep this amazing and wonderful institution going for as long as we can, and obviously for the next 60 years would be wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you so much for having me. I'd like to thank Peter Coulson, Alexander Boyer, and Colin Hughes most sincerely for their input into this evening. I know that there's some video footage of what the college looks like now and how it is that you will see later on in the evening, and I hope that you enjoy it. But I'd like each of those gentlemen, please, to receive a small token from Falcon on our behalf. So if they would just pick it up from Martha, please. But each of those, Peter Coulson, Alexander Boy, and Colin Hughes, please collect something from Martha. I'd just like to say very quickly that I'm incredibly grateful also to an old boy, Grant Patterson, who spoke at Speech Day, which of course was on Thursday morning. When I was invited here, I said to Martha, I'm not sure that we can possibly get here. And then what happened was that Grant Patterson, who was coming up to speak at Speech Day, said, I'm chartering an aeroplane and I'm coming to Falcon, can I land at the strip, please? I said, I'd be delighted if you would. It would be fantastic. We'll look after the airplane. Don't you panic about it. The runway is good and all the rest of it. And then I thought, well, I wonder if it will I could get on an airplane and go back to Joburg with him. And of course I asked that question and he said, of course you can. The airplane is well big enough. And so that's exactly what happened. So after Speech Day at literally 1:30 on Thursday, Martha and I got on his airplane and we went back into Joburg and enabled us to catch an Emirates flight which arrived here yesterday afternoon. So I'm incredibly grateful to Grant Patterson for everything that he's done for us, and it was a wonderful experience. I have had all sorts of questions this evening, and I have answered some of them, but I would be delighted to try and answer any other questions that may be. Robert.
Well, I'd like to ask about this Falcon Foundation. And what plans there are for it in more detail, and when you will be telling all of us about this. Because one of the points about having reached a 60th anniversary is that there are quite a few of us who are getting quite elderly. And after a time, the elderly tend to disappear. And quite often they have considerable assets, and they make wills before they die. And it may be that people might wish to leave money in their wills to Falcon, if you've got a well-run foundation to do it to. So I think this could be strategically very important to the college, and I'd be very pleased if you could tell us a bit more about it.
Sure, I will, with great pleasure. I mean, very obviously it's awkward, obviously, asking people to contribute, but at the end of the day, this is what we plan. What we would like is for there to be trustees from the Old Boys, the headmaster and one of the board members, who would also be an Old Boy, would be on that board, and we would expect that the Old Boys would determine where that money was spent. In other words, we don't want money from Old Boys to be frittled away on regular school things. We would like it to go towards something that is substantial, that will make a difference at the college. And that will be launched by John McTaggart, who is currently our projects manager, if you like, at the college. He's looking after things like mining and various other bits and pieces, but he will launch that any time now, and every Old Boy will get all that information as soon as he does that. But it's close now. We're very close to getting to where we want to be, and as you say, we would be delighted if Old Boys would contribute to that. What I've already said is that we wouldn't simply utilize the funding, we would utilize the interest on that funding. So that's really, if that's an answer at all, I hope that's what it will be. Mm-hmm. And you all get some sort of something in the mail, so please don't go unless we have your email address, but we have many of them now, and that particular thing is developing marvelously. And as I said, there were 300 Old Boys at that function in Bulawayo, which was an amazing function, something that I think everybody, and there's many people here who experienced it. The brotherhood there was incredible, and it really made what Falcon stands for. It really reinforced that a great deal. Anybody else? Someone asked me earlier if we still beat boys, and I want to tell you that we do. So. There were some hands at the back.
What's the black-white split?
The black-white split? I really... Okay, I want to tell you that I don't really know, because I always say to people, and I say to young people who come through the gate, once you come through the gate of Falcon, you're a Falcon boy. Okay, and that means something quite different to what is in Zimbabwe currently. One of our great issues is there's a moral dilemma. There are all sorts of corruption. There's all sorts of things that go on outside of our gate, and I make it very clear that when you come in the gate at Falcon, that doesn't exist. So, but the ratio, I think, is about 40% white. We have boys from all over the place. We have from Botswana, we have from Zambia, we have Joyce Majuru's grandson. We have a real cross-section of young people. The only issue now, of course, is that they don't come from farming stock for the most part. They come from every which way. As I said, from Botswana, from Zambia, from every which way. Even old boy sons who come from Johannesburg. Yeah.
Just in terms of the school fees, I know at one stage it was 2 or 3 mombies. How has that changed over the years?
So it hasn't changed.
The story is that a lot of the guys' kids in Zim, they're looking to send them down to Hilton and my house instead of to Falcon.
Okay.
Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, of course I do. I mean, first of all, how many mombies is it? I think 4.5. Okay, on the current rate. The school fees are $4,000 a term. So $12,000 a year. US. There's very little that comes on the extra side of that. That's probably it. And if you were at Hilton currently, you'd pay twice as much as that. So there is no. Certainly, we are not as expensive as the top South African schools, without a single doubt. I want to tell you that recently we took a group of under 15 boys. I'm going to say recently, 2 weeks ago, we took a group of under 15 boys to a water polo tournament at Hilton. And before they left, I said to those particular boys, you need to come back, and each and every one of you need to tell me what's at Hilton that we could do that would make Falcon a better place. Every one of them came back, and every one of them has spoken to me. And there's not a great deal that I was astounded at that was happening at Hilton that we didn't do at Falcon. They talked about having 3 different puddings for lunch and other things which I didn't find too important. So at the end of the day, what I want to say to you is, but I want to say to you also that what happened when they did go, of course, was that 4 of them were offered scholarships at Hilton because they had been there and done incredibly well. They drew, I think they drew with Hilton, but they beat Michael House, they beat several of the very top South African schools. So we're very competitive with anything that happens out there. We can't really play rugby against the top South African schools, and I'm talking about Pretoria Boys High or Uffies in Pretoria or maybe Grey Bloem. But against Michael House and Hilton, we can most certainly play, and we would be competitive. Anything else?
What happens to the boys at Falcon in terms of going off to university, and what's the next step they tend to take, either within Africa or in the world?
Thank you. There are, I would say to you that 35% of them go to South African universities. The rest of them, I would say about another 25% go to university elsewhere. So either here in the UK, America, or Australia. There are a percentage, of course, who don't go to university, who do a trade, or who stay at home, or go overseas and do something quite different. But that's probably about what we do. There are very few now who go to university locally. They just don't do that. But as I said to you earlier, 2 years ago the head boy went to Harvard. He was fast-tracked there and accepted. And lots of the boys do incredibly well.
You mentioned John McTaggart is in charge of things like mining. Can you tell us more about mining? Reopen bush tick or something?
Yeah, the mining thing at Falcon, we've kind of pushed forwards and backwards and pushed forward again. There are lots of people when I first arrived at Falcon who said, you know, there's 250,000 ounces of gold in the dumps. So why don't you just do the dumps and get that gold out? Well, first of all, it's a very complex kind of business, and of course the gold price has dropped quite considerably. So in the first instance, our gold in the dumps is really not viable currently. That runs at about 0.6 of a gram, and to get it out is just not viable. So then we looked at other mining issues, and what we've done is we've got a mining company who's listed on the Australian Stock Exchange to come in and to have a look at the viability of mining the bush tick. Okay, initially in surface mining, and we've done a, what is it called, electromagnetic survey of the place. We've had planes fly over, and they've told us where the gold is and where it is, and all the rest of it. And what we're doing is that company is busy exploring our asset. They are paying us some money to do that, not a great deal, but they are paying some money to do that. The plan ultimately is if they drill the resource and find that it's worth it, then we will have a 5% share in that particular resource. On the other hand, what we've done recently is we've taken that package of our resource, as it were, and we've taken it to one of the lending houses in our country, and we've said to them, is this not a viable package for you guys to take over, and you simply pay us this money and we go forward from here. They are busy reviewing that particular situation as we speak. Should that come about, it would mean that our debt, which we have of course at the college, would disappear, and we would be one school in the world, I think, that has a resource like mining, which pays us, which would be fantastic. But we're quite a long way from that yet, and so, as I said to you, it's a bit of a battle.
Do you have independent advisors?
Yes, we do. Falcon Old Boys. Stuart
and a few of them.
Stuart Comline has been very kind to us in South Africa. He came up specifically for the presentation, and we've put that now to the money people, and we simply wait and see what happens. Of course, there's no danger of Falcon being taken over by a mine. Okay, we've made sure that that doesn't happen. They may be able to mine there, but they wouldn't be able to disturb us doing what we want. I just want to tell you that the best part of the reserves, I think, are pretty well close to Chubb, so good luck, Chubb.
As a leading school in Zimbabwe, and in this country, Eton's leading school, and one of their goals is to influence the direction that the country takes, and Falcon College probably should have the same goals in Zimbabwe. Is there any evidence that Falcon Old Boys are starting to make a difference in the upper echelons of governance in Zimbabwe?
I mean, it's a very difficult question, obviously, and I don't want to be unrealistic. But we have people now like Tawanda Ushuwakunzi, who many of you will know and understand. There were a bunch of Ushuwakunzis who went through the college. Tawanda is of course a very, how can I put this? It's very difficult, but he's of course a leading person in our country, and there is no question in my mind, and it's a very personal thing, that young people who have been through places like ours will determine the future of Zimbabwe in the future. It's really what I've hoped and prayed for, and I really believe that one day it will happen. And that day is not too far away now. There is no question that the hierarchy is aging, and there are young people coming through the system. People like Adam Malai, and he's not a Falcon Old Boy, but he's from that other place who has the royal blue, and various others are without a single doubt coming through the system and are influential. So the answer to your question is yes, I believe that Zimbabwe will be led by young people who've come out of the independent schooling system, and very specifically Falcon College.
How difficult is it to procure staffing at the school going forward, and currently I know when I spoke to you personally, you mentioned that the Conference of Heads of Independent Schools was still thriving, and I thought your answer might warrant public forum.
Thank you. Obviously, a school is as good as its staff. It's as good as the young people who teach the boys who go to that particular institution. There is no question that staffing of the school is difficult. But we've been incredibly fortunate, I think. Firstly, because of the stability of the college and the fact that we have looked after teachers at Falcon. Neil and Sue Todd were at Speech Day on Thursday, and it was wonderful to have them. And one of Neil's big things, of course, in the past and is now, is making sure that we get young people into the system. So the answer is, it's difficult, but I've been incredibly fortunate in the sense that because we are who we are, we've been able to take the ones who do come along on a regular basis. So from my point of view, I've been incredibly fortunate, I think. I think you make your own luck to a certain extent, and Falcon has made its own luck. So it is difficult, but I can assure you that I've been getting numerous applications from outside the country of people between the ages of about 28 and 35, ex-Zimbabweans, who would like to come home and teach. So from that point of view, we've been incredibly lucky, and we have, as I said to you, a changing of the guard. We have young people in the system who are good role models, and of course who are very good teachers, and who understand modern education. So that's my answer.
Mr. Querl, just from the youngsters at the back here.
Can I say something? The reason the youngsters at the back is because they're of sound hearing.
But I can hear you clearly, sir.
Well, I think from the back, one of the things obviously fairly evident for this evening is that it is of a higher age gap between ourselves potentially and the rest of the room, and it's how we can engage with the rest of the Falcon Old Boys of a younger echelon, and to try and bring them in. Correct, yourself included. And it's how we can engage them, other than not doing this on on a 50th anniversary, on a 60th anniversary. How we can bring the Falcon Old Boys, whether it's on and maybe it's more of a pertinent question to Colin Views, how we can, because Colin's very active on social media, for a youngster that he is, which is good. But it's how we can engage the guys, the younger Falcon Old Boys that are just leaving the college, to be coming in, and enjoying these on occasions like this, on a 60th anniversary, potentially on a 70th anniversary, when in 10 years' time, where we can fill the college and perhaps Harrow Hall, rather than just 100, 200 people coming this evening. How we can go about doing that?
Yeah, I think it's a very difficult thing. You're absolutely right. Those who leave school, who've left school most recently, they're the ones who kind of, in the first instance, you're not that keen on actually, because you haven't made any money. After that, you do need to engage. You need to understand that, and we're working really hard. Firstly, on social media, which is where younger people seem to communicate. We're working really hard at making sure that everybody is brought in, and that we communicate with everybody. We have a huge drive currently to make sure that every old boy is contactable. So it really is up to each and every one of us to make sure that if you've got friends out there who aren't here tonight, that you contact them and say, why don't you just give the school your old boys news, anything at all, where you are, what you're doing. I spoke to a gentleman this evening who came up with a whole lot of photographs, and they were amazing photographs. And if you've seen the school magazine, you will know that magazine, we desperately try and give old boys some pages in there, but we battle. We really struggle to find any information that there is out there of them. You can go on social media, and you can go on the internet, and you can find guys, but what we need for you guys to do, as younger people, is to communicate with your friends, your people who you still know, and make sure that they are communicating with us. Because once we have their addresses, we will send them weekly information on how we're going, what we're doing, my newsletter, and other unimportant information which you'd love to hear. But you also talk about the real things that are happening at the college. So if you could, and if you would, that's what we'd like. We really would like that information. So if everyone here would kind of find another 5 Falcon Old Boys to get on that website so that we can know where you are, it would help us a great deal.
I mean, look at the girls, they all relaxed and then we would look a lot more relaxed in safari suits. Good.
And there's a very old guy at the back and I can't hear him.
I think it's being flippant.
Okay, I think in the interest of time, because we are time limited on the evening tonight.
Can I just say
one last thing? Sorry.
I'd like to say that there was 2 or 3 of us who actually went across to Bushtick and Falcon in July. And I left in 1967. And I want to tell you, it was the most impressive visit. I think Peter was with me, and also Ian Helby was there. And I really was absolutely impressed and proud to have come from that school. And a lot of you, if you haven't been there, I want to tell you, Reg is telling you the truth. It's brilliant. Put your money in, and let's keep it going.
Thank you. I'm very humbled by that, and I thank you all. Thanks very much.